Welcome back to the Superhero Institute. In today's video, I'm going to follow up the video I made about 2 months ago about how to pitch anything like a superhero. I got a number of different ideas for things that people would like to see me pitch from my Facebook group, and I'm going to do all of those different items today. I'm going to pitch each and every one of them, and I'm going to show you how I do it using the ABC technique. Let's go. Thank you for joining me again. My name is Jeff Gibbard. I'm the founder of the Superhero Institute. Please follow me on Twitter and all over the internets. And also do me a favor and subscribe and hit that notification bell if you'd like to receive notifications when I make new videos. Now, today what I'm going to be doing is going through the ABC style pitch for a number of different recommended services that people had sent over to me. I posed a question in the Facebook group. If you would like to see me pitch anything, what would you like to see me pitch? And I got a number of serious answers and then at the same time a number of kind of joke answers, things that maybe were just for fun. But I'm actually going to try and pitch each and every one of them. And I'm going to try and do each and every one of these on one take. I haven't done any research into these different businesses, but I'm just going to try and tell a story using the ABC format so that you can see how you can do this sort of a pitch format on the fly. And when you're actually super familiar with your material and with your content and with what it is you do for a living and why it's valuable, you should be able to nail this pitch each and every time in a variety of different ways, but using the same ABC framework. So I've got a couple of these. I'm going to try and do them just one right after the other. I'm going to try and do these in one take. If I totally screw one up, I am going to stop and make an edit and redo it. So if you see an edit, that means that I probably screwed it up. Otherwise, I'm just going to try and do this whole thing in one take. I've got 8 different things here, and I'm going to try and go through them one by one. So the first one I want to talk about, or the first thing I want to pitch, is a glove guard for popsicles. I figured we'd start off with something a little bit lighthearted, see where it goes. So, you know, the fun thing about popsicles is that they're cold. They're really sweet. They're enjoyable. Great on a hot day. You know what the problem with popsicles is that they melt. They melt right in your hand. And then that enjoyable, sweet, delicious cold treat that you've been enjoying is now all over your hands. And while you got to enjoy a good portion of it, you're not really enjoying the fact that you're walking around with these sticky hands. It's one of the biggest problems facing popsicle lovers today is that they have to balance their love of a sweet, cold, enjoyable popsicle with their distaste for having to go and wash their sticky hands off and find, either wet wipes or some sort of a way of cleaning their hands. It's an absolute mess. It's a nightmare. But luckily, there is a way that you can avoid this problem altogether and still enjoy your popsicle. And it's by having glove guards for popsicles. You see, what it does is that it allows for you to be able to enjoy a popsicle while protecting your hands from all of the sticky gooiness that comes off of a delicious, sweet, frozen popsicle. So if you buy a glove guard, you're then able to enjoy your popsicle without fear of having to go and wash your hands later. And then the nice thing about them is that they're reusable, machine washable, and you can get them in just about any department store or Walmart or major retailers like Target. So go and check it out for glove guards for popsicles. Not my best, but also glove guards for popsicles. Okay, next. Somebody said Freedhem, hemorrhoidal cream. You know what really burns my ass? Hemorrhoids. Man, they can just be such a pain in the ass. It burns, and it just ruins the entire day. And you know, for most of the course of human history, when people had hemorrhoids, it was something that they could do virtually nothing about. They just had to sit and deal with it. And that is a really rough life for anyone. If you know what I'm talking about, holla back. But the truth of the matter is we don't have to live like that anymore. We're in the 21st century, for God's sakes. And now, thanks to Freedhem hemorrhoid cream, you're actually able to get sweet, sweet cooling relief for that hemorrhoid problem. And the nice thing about it is that it's available widely, just about everywhere. And it's easy to apply. You don't need very much of it, but it makes an amazing impact on the quality of your life if you're someone who suffers from hemorrhoids. So give Freedhem a try and let us know what you think by going to the website thatburnsmyass.com. Okay, try that one. All right, let's see. Did those two. Let's try and go with a little bit more serious one. Guest blogging content. I got this from somebody who's in my network who works in social media and receives a lot of pitches for people who want to guest blog. This one is one I'm just going to address kind of separately from the ABC pitch, which is that if you are going to try and pitch, whether you're on LinkedIn, whether you're sending a pitch to bloggers to try and guest blog for them or see if they accept submissions, the number one major piece of advice I would have for you is that you cannot rely on a standard canned templated pitch. In all of my experience back when I worked in PR, and then also in the time I've been dealing in influencer marketing and my time working in a link building department, what I have noticed is that while you can play the numbers game, you are going to get a much higher response rate in each of these different areas if you're pitching yourself, if you take a really, truly personalized approach. Bloggers like myself, and I'm not even like a big time blogger, but real bloggers who have like a massive blog following, they are used to receiving pitches day in and day out. And they know the ones where you're just using a template out of, some sort of a program where it just fills in a recent blog post and it says, I really loved your post about X. You have a great voice, blah, blah, blah. I would like to know if you are open to all of that sort of stuff. We see right through it. Anytime we get one of those, we're immediately certain, okay, well, this is just a canned pitch that you've sent to everyone. It doesn't make me feel special. And one thing about blogging in specific is that bloggers who have spent the time to build an audience and grow an audience, they have a real relationship and connection with these audiences. And you can't just send them a canned pitch and take them as if they're just another outlet for you. You actually have to put the effort in sending a personalized note. So the way that my emails that anytime I did that sort of outreach would go is I would tend to do something that sounded much more personal. I'd be like, hey man, just been checking out your blog. And by the way, you actually have to check out their blog and read things and look into it and go for the quality game rather than the quantity game, just as an aside. But what you do is you actually pick out a blog post and you say, listen, I really enjoyed this post in particular. I love how you covered this, that, and the other thing. There's another post I saw that talked about something similar. What do you think about the differences between these things? I'm really curious to hear your feedback. Thanks. Then if you get a message back, now you've engaged in a relationship and you've engaged in a dialogue, and then you can follow up and actually say, hey, listen, I've been writing a couple posts. I'm not sure if you're open to guest posts, but I have this really awesome post. I think it goes in line with some of the things your audience likes. What do you think? Right? So now it's not just this thing where you're trying to like blunt force trauma your way into somebody's blog, but instead you're actually respecting and appreciating that they've built an audience, that they've done something that's valuable, and that you appreciate that it is an ask for you to get in front of that blog. Now, the only other way you can do it is you can just be straight up front about the fact that like you're trying to get links and just say, hey, listen, I'm willing to offer like $200, $300, or whatever your budget is to post a guest blog so that I can get a link back to my site, right? Like just be upfront about it. But the worst thing you can do in either LinkedIn or on guest blogging or any of that sort of outreach is to pretend, right? To BS people and give them this, line that like, oh, I'm just trying to expand my network. Like BS, man. Like you're trying to sell me on something. Just be upfront about it. And if you're upfront, it gives me the respect of knowing that like you respect my time, or I guess it lets me know that you respect my time because you're giving me all of the information up front to make the decision. Now, if you want to take the circuitous route like I recommend in the beginning, I would recommend that. Be more warm, be more personal, build relationships. Who knows? You might even be able to have a guest blog relationship for the foreseeable future by actually treating that person as a person rather than as a number on your list. So that's my way of thinking about guest blogging. If I had to pitch that as an ABC, I'd be like, if you're a blogger and you're trying to get guest blogging spots, have you ever noticed how basically no one pays any attention to you? Nobody gets back to you. You send email after email after email, and nobody wants to seem to let you guest blog. And you put a lot of work into these posts, and it seems that no matter what you do, no matter how hard you try, you just can't seem to get a guest post. Well, what if you were to take an entirely different approach than what you've been doing, which is instead of focusing on the quantity, you focus on the quality. And instead of thinking of it as a pitch, rather than pitching someone to let you on as a guest post, you're instead looking to build relationships with bloggers. And once you do, then you subtly find a way to figure out whether or not they're even open to that. And if they are, then you make your offer about guest blogging. It's a slower approach, but it's going to have a much higher success rate. So I would strongly suggest that you take that approach in the future of focusing on quality rather than quantity. So that's how I would pitch it. All right, that's guest blogging content. I'm going to go to this one just because I think it's ridiculous. My friend Todd came up with this one. Road legal tank tread modifications. So this is for cars to have road legal tank tread modifications. It's so absurd that I just want to try and pitch this. I want to see if I can even do it. Okay, so I'm going to walk you through kind of like the mental process I'm going through right now. So the first thing is I'm trying to figure out what would your awful life look like? What would the awful situation be if you didn't have tank tread modifications? What would that look like? What might some of the things be? Like maybe you can't take on all terrain and you're in a remote location and that's going to be really difficult. Maybe you have a small car and what you really need is something to give people a little bit of space on you because people have been tailgating you too much and they see tank treads and holy shit, they're going to think back off. So these are just some of the things that are immediately going through my head. Like, okay, what are the problems? It could be that like, you know, there's problems that go on with your suspension by having regular road cars. You live in a bumpy road area, blah, 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 blah. So those are all awful things, right? But better, you could avoid it. And here's the little dirty trick about the ABC is that typically when you're going through A for awful, that's describing like a bunch of things that could go wrong. And then B is basically just the reverse of all of those things than any other features and benefits you might be able to offer, right? And then C is where you say where people can get it and what it is, et cetera, right? So road legal tank tread modifications. So there's a couple things about that. Road legal means that there's probably also illegal tank tread modifications, which you could get tickets for, and then you could have fines, and maybe you even go to jail in certain municipalities, right? So these are all the things that I'm immediately building the story in my head of how I'm going to ABC this, right? So a pitch might go like this. If you live in a small rural town outside of major cities, you may find that some of the roads that you expected to be paved really aren't well tended to. They might be bumpy. They might be, really murder on your suspension of your car. And you've paid a lot for the car that you have. And unfortunately, there aren't a lot of options out there for you outside of getting new shocks every few months or, risking getting yourself into an accident. Another thing is that when you're out in these more rural areas, people have a tendency to drive a little bit more lackadaisical. And on top of that, you may also have people who are just visiting from maybe the city that start to tailgate and they get a little bit more aggressive. So you want to have a way of creating a little bit more space for yourself. Unfortunately, the primary solution that you have, tank treads for your cars, are mostly illegal. You're not allowed to put them on your car without fear of getting fined or being even thrown in prison in some municipalities. So instead, you're left wondering, how in the world can I even drive around my neighborhood if I'm going to have people tailgating me? I'm going to have to worry about my suspension because of all of these bumpy roads. Well, what if there was a way that you could actually get tank treads on your car? That way that you could create a little bit of space around you because ain't nobody messing with a tank treads on a car. But at the same time, also avoid the hassle of being annoyed by the police or being given a fine or risk being thrown in prison. Well, the good thing is that now, thanks to new technologies for smaller cars and larger cars, we're able to make road legal tank tread modifications for all vehicles, and you can find them at your local Pep Boys. They have them for every possible make and model and blah, 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 blah. Okay, so that's how I went about trying to pitch something so ridiculous is what does the awful situation look like? And then what does the better situation look like? And then connect the two with some sort of an offer. So there you go, Todd. Road legal tank tread modifications. All right, next. Got 4 different ones left. All right, next. I got somebody commented, there's a product called Pliio, Pliio, and it's a folding tool. So what it does is it allows you to fold all manner of different clothing in a way that makes it so that everything is uniform in your closet and in your drawers. Now, this is one that's a lot easier for me to conceptualize because some of you may or may not know, but I am obsessively organized about my closet and about my dressers. So I am a Marie Kondo fan. I love every time I watch any of those shows that are about neatening up or tidying up. I'm in. I'm ready for it. So for me, it's a lot easier to conceptualize what is the value of a tool like this. And I also back in my earlier years, in my late teens, actually, I worked in retail. In my late teens and early 20s, I worked in retail, and I actually used to enjoy the part about folding the clothes. It just was something I enjoyed. So let's talk about this thing. So Pliio, it's a folding tool. Let's go into the awful better connector. Here's how it goes. You know, one of the things that people absolutely love and hate about me is how neat and organized my closet is. And the reason why is because it is so difficult to actually have a neat and organized closet. And part of the reason for that is that so many different clothes fold in different ways. If you have a long sleeve shirt versus a short sleeve shirt versus a hoodie versus a sweater, maybe you have a blouse, all of these different things fold in different ways. And when you try to fit them into a dresser or hang them in some sort of a way that makes sense and keeps your clothing organized, it can be really, really difficult. And part of the reason is that it's not like in school we're given folding classes, and despite all of the videos online, you'd have to go through resource after resource after resource to be able to find a way to fold effectively all of the different things that are in your closet. But luckily for you, and luckily for people like me who like to keep their closet organized, there are actually tools that allow you to fold virtually every single type of clothing and do it in a way where it's going to fit neat and organized in an even row inside even the tightest of dresser drawers. So the product that I would recommend that you take a look at is Pliio. It's a folding tool that actually works for each and every type of clothing and is really simple to use. Anybody can use it. You can teach your kids to use it even. So if you have kids whose room is a complete mess, the Pliio is going to give you an amazing ability to keep that room neat and organized, and there's no excuse now for not having everything folded perfectly and in line in dressers and in your closets. ABC for Pliio. I'm not claiming that all of these are perfect pitches, mind you. I'm just showing you the process that I go through to be able to pitch anything at any given time. One of the things that I'll do is when I go to networking events, I'll ask people what they do. They tell me what they do, and then I'll immediately take everything that they told me. I'll ask a few follow-up questions, whatever. I'll take everything that they did, and then I'll pitch what they do back to them. And one of the reasons I do that is that then they naturally are going to ask me, what do you do? How did you pitch my business back to me better than I can pitch it to you? And I was like, well, this is one of the things I do at the Superhero Institute. I work with people on how to message themselves, on their branding, on their marketing, on their sales. I do all of these different things, and one of the things I do is I help people understand how to pitch and how to talk about the work that they do. So that's one of the things that I'll do when I go out there, and I'm just using this framework, ABC, every single time. Okay, so I got 3 left. I'm going to save what I believe is probably the hardest for me last. So the next is a friend of mine wrote, can we work together in a couple of months? And really how to pitch and how to respond to someone that says to you like, oh, I'm interested, but can I get back to you in a couple of months? So in this particular scenario, the first thing that I would try to focus on is like, what is the value of what it is that you do? And what is the opportunity cost or the issues that could come from somebody not doing the work with you? So if they choose not to do, what are all the opportunities that they might be missing, all the different benefits that they might get from working with you that they would otherwise be unable to obtain by moving into the future. Now, obviously, in this case, it's not about manipulating people who don't need what you do into working with you sooner. But if we're looking at how should you frame it if you're going to try and do that, and this is actually a really interesting time to do it now that, we have more and more of the globe is on lockdown. You've got people that, like people like me, I'm an entrepreneur. If I don't sell, if I don't get clients, then I don't have any income. If I don't have any income, how am I going to pay my mortgage, right? So there are a lot of people who are in this situation where they're thinking to themselves, well, if I can't go out into the field, if I can't be in front of customers, if I can't do this, if I can't do that, how am I going to book clients? And there's going to be a lot of people who are saying, hey, I want to wait until all of this stuff dies down. And given that we don't know how long this whole thing is going to take, this whole, can we work together in a couple of months sort of thing is a very common issue that people are going to be dealing with. So here's how I would deal with something like that. I would immediately go through what are the different things that could go wrong, and then I would talk about what could go right if we work together. So for instance, someone says, can we work together in a couple months? You say, yeah, I completely understand. In these trying times, everybody is watching every single penny, right? But the truth of the matter is that this is exactly the time where most businesses really need to be thinking about buckling down, because for every day that you're out of the game, for every day that you're not making a sales offer, while you're not taking advantage of this downtime where you're working from home, where you can actually put together those sales resources and those marketing resources and all of the different work that we could do together in this time where we could work virtually and kind of get ahead of things, the more that you're putting yourself in a position to not be ready once the economy kickstarts once again, or when those few months are up. And at the same time, you're also not going to be ready to hit the ground running, and you're not going to have those resources, and you're not going to have the time later when the economy comes roaring back, right? So when we all move through this whole process and work starts up again, are you really going to have 2 to 3 weeks to just sit at your desk and actually put together these sales resources or ask yourself these tough questions? Probably not, because you're going to be in the thick of trying to make up for lost time. So why not take this time right now, invest the time working together at this time, and get ahead of the curve? That's basically how I would probably do it. And there could be a bunch of other things that you could. I kind of paused there because I was thinking, like, should you offer maybe a discount to work earlier right now because we want to get that work booked? Or, you could say something along the lines of, my clients who virtually every one of my clients, and yeah, obviously this has to be true, but you say something like, the clients that I work with, you can see from the reviews, they see an immense amount of value in it. And I even know that a couple of my clients have said that they wish that they had started work with me sooner. So I'm not saying that we shouldn't wait, but I'm also saying there's an immense amount of value in us actually getting started right now. I have the time in my schedule right now, and I think we can make a lot of progress while virtually everybody is kind of on lockdown. So it's one of the ways that you could do it. I mean, there's 100 other ways, obviously, but that's how I would tend to approach the can we work together in a month. Candidly, like when people say that to me, one of the first things I say to them, and this is absolutely true, I say, listen, I don't know what my schedule is going to look like in a couple months. I don't know if I'm going to have the availability, if I'm going to have the opening. I only work with a limited number of clients. So I work with 2 large clients at a time. I won't take on a third. I'll work with 3 maximum throughout the course of the year because our work takes, a decent amount of time. And once those slots are booked, those slots are booked. And then as far as all of my work with the Superhero Institute and the Superhero mastermind and all the different groups that I have, essentially I only have so many slots. And when those slots are filled, that's that. And I really like the project that we have talked about working on together. I think that I can help you. I think that we have a good working relationship. So obviously, if you can't work right now, I understand that. But I also just want to let you know that I may or may not be available in that couple of months. If I am, obviously totally willing to work with you, but I'd prefer if we could get started now while I still have the space, while, the idea of what we've been talking about is fresh in my mind, and we can, I think, make a lot of progress on it. We can do, we can play with the different timelines. We can do different things to see if, if it makes more sense to kind of change the order of what we originally talked about. But I think starting earlier is to both of our benefit, whereas if we delay it into the future, as a possibility we may not be able to work together or work together as effectively. That's probably how I would pitch it if it were me, if I'm putting myself in that position. That's probably what I would say. Okay, so I got that one. I got 2 more. Pro speaker. So I'm a part of a speaker group, and I'm friends with a number of different speakers. And one of them reached out to me and commented on this and said, "Is tech savvy human, sales, marketing, tech, and leadership." Tech savvy, human focused, sales, marketing, tech, and leadership. He also has really nice orange glasses. Handsome guy. So here's how I would probably pitch something like that. One of the problems with pro speakers today is that everyone seems to have just this niche. And that's a good thing in a lot of ways, because if you're looking for somebody who's like a sales speaker, you can get a sales speaker. If you're looking for somebody who's a leadership speaker, you can probably find that. If you look for someone who's a tech speaker, you can probably find that. But the problem is that there is not all that many people who can actually talk about each and every one of those different categories that I just mentioned, along with marketing, and figure out how all of those different topics work together. And I think one of the things that's nice about that is that when you get someone who has that sort of world view of those different topics, tech and leadership and sales and marketing, is that you begin to see where all of those overlaps are. And what you see is that actually the common denominator between all of those things is humans, right? So if you really focus on the people that are behind the marketing, the sales, the leadership, and the tech, you get a very different view than if you just talk to, say, somebody who is a technology speaker who maybe spends all of their time with technology and not enough with people. So as a professional speaker, one of the things that I bring to the table is being able to overlap and show the intersections between and the reasons why understanding each of these 4 areas actually creates a better understanding in each and individual one of those areas of marketing, tech, sales, and leadership. So if you're looking for a speaker at your next event, one of the things I would recommend is to ask yourself whether or not you want somebody who is exclusively focused in one particular vertical, which may be good for some of your speaker slots. But if you're looking for something that really expands people's understanding of those different topics, you may want to consider reaching out to a speaker like myself who shows the overlap between those 4 different topics and why it matters and how it's going to help you advance in your career. So it's kind of similar to what I talk about as a speaker. So when I talk about as a speaker, I talk about how your business makes money and how that dictates what is your brand, right? And your brand also needs to consider how that impacts your leadership and your culture. Your leadership is going to impact your culture. Your brand is going to impact your leadership. Your brand is going to impact your culture. And all of that, once you've understood your business and how it makes money and all the different things that you're getting into, the brand of that business, your leadership and your culture, then you can turn to talking about your marketing and your sales. And when you have all of those components working together, where there's a confluence between all of those different topics, and there's a through line between each of them, then there's this sort of brand consistency, this brand congruence through each and every aspect of your business, and it allows you to be much more successful. And that's what I speak on, is about the intersections of those different topics and going into some depth in each and every one of them, but showing how each of them relate to and are incumbent upon understanding and knowledge in the other areas that I speak on. So that's kind of like how I talk about what I do. And my friend Phil with the sexy orange glasses, that's kind of how I would pitch him, is to kind of talk about the benefits of someone who sees the overlapping areas in those different areas of speaking. So that's how I'd pitch it. And then finally, this is the one I think I'm gonna have the hardest time with, actually. And it's very commonplace in a lot of ways because we're all very familiar with it. Like, a lot of these are very niche examples, but is catering. So my friend Harry reached out to me and he asked, how would you pitch catering? And I'm actually going to do 2 pitches for this. The first is going to be just a very basic catering pitch. And then the second is going to be a catering pitch given what's going on right now with the pandemic and the coronavirus that we're dealing with. So first pitch would be something along the lines of, if you've ever thrown a party, you know how much work it is to actually feed 30, 40, 50, 60 people. And if you're having them over your house, you know that it is a nightmare to actually clean up all of the food and all of the preparation that you've gone through. Most of the time you're spending during that party is watching over whether or not there's enough food, refilling the egg rolls, making sure there's enough shrimp cocktail. It is madness. And really all you want to do during any one of these parties, whether it be a baby shower, an anniversary, a birthday party, is spend time with your guests. You have family you've seen, you haven't seen in a while. They're from out of town. Maybe you have a friend that traveled many, many miles of distance to come and be at this party, and yet all you're worried about is whether or not you're burning the puff pastry. It's a nightmare, and it doesn't need to be this way. One of the best things that you can do if you're going to throw a party is just take all of that off of your plate. Hire a caterer. Caterers are masterful at being able to ensure that all of the food comes out at high quality, hot, and without any sort of work on your part. And it's really, really affordable. If you factor in the amount of time that you're going to put into all of the preparation, all of the cleanup and everything, it is a no-brainer. Hiring a caterer will give you peace of mind and make planning an event really more about the relationships and the connection with the people at the party than it is about you cooking. And even if you like cooking, why not just make one dish that you really love and hire a caterer to take care of the rest? That's how I'd probably pitch it on a normal way. Now, given the current pandemic, I would probably pitch it in a slightly different way. Look, parties, not happening right now. Gatherings of more than 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 people, it's not in the cards for the foreseeable future, and it's because we all have to practice safety and social distancing. That said, where do you eat? You can't go out to bars, you can't go out to restaurants, and the truth of the matter is that cooking at home has started to become an arduous process that maybe not all of us enjoy that much. Luckily, there's a lot of catering firms that have taken this as an opportunity, one, to help stem the tide of all of this lost revenue from all the parties that are not happening, but also to provide a valuable service that takes advantage of their core capabilities, which is to create food at scale. So one of the ways that caterers have been able to do this is that with a limited skeleton crew working in kitchens, they're able to create a large number of dishes, say banquet style, and then make those available for delivery to households for families of 2, families of 4, and families of 6. And it's all available, high quality food delivered directly to you. And you're doing a benefit to the local catering businesses by helping them to keep their business running, to keep revenue coming in, and at the same time giving yourself and your family a high quality meal. All right, so that's all of the different options that people posted on my Facebook group. I hope you enjoyed this. I hope you were somewhat impressed by this, because it should be impressive if you're not able to do it yet. But here's the thing, once you know how to do what I just did, pitching all of these different things like right off the bat, one after the other, once you use the ABC format and you learn how to do it, you learn how to go through that mental process and spit out a pitch right on the spot, it'll look like magic to everybody else. But in your head, it's really a very simple process. You're literally just playing like story Mad Libs in your head about how to go about telling this particular story and pitching this idea. It's a sequence, it's a framework, it's quite easy. So I hope you got a lot out of this. Wanted to make sure that I fulfilled on my end of the deal, and I promised that I would do these videos, so here I've done these videos. So please, hire your local caterer, get yourself some hemorrhoid cream, get a glove guard for your popsicles, and hire that pro speaker. He's very talented and very handsome. Get yourself a Pliio so that with all that time at home, you can fold and make sure your closet is looking really good and your dresser is looking wonderful. And if you're going to pitch some guest blogging content, for God's sakes, take your time and build a relationship. If somebody wants to work with you in the future, look, you can let them, but you should probably let them know about why they should do it now. And listen, if you find yourself out in the suburbs, I know we're all on lockdown, but if you got to go to the grocery store, you probably should get yourself some road legal tank tread modifications. This has been Jeff Gibbard for the Superhero Institute. I'm out.